think that if anyone ever said that they never lost a customer, they probably wouldn't be telling the truth.
Misunderstandings, writing down things when you interpret them your own way and not actually how the customer understands them to be.
I've had times where when I wrote an RO, customer's complaint did not thoroughly get written down. I overlooked it, trying to take a shortcut.
He's back 5 minutes later saying it still does the same thing. Well, wait a minute, the bike wasn't running when you brought it in. Well, it was running, it just wasn't running well. His idea and my idea were not the same idea of running.
Unfortunately, he felt that it should have been taken care of in a tune and service. But when I indicated to him that a tune and service would not necessarily doesn't include boiling out carburetors, we lost him.
Customer satisfaction. That's what it's all about. A satisfied customer is your dealership's most vital asset. Over the years, I've learned a valuable lesson. The sales staff might sell the first motorcycle to a customer, but it's my service department that keeps that customer coming back. When we maintain customers' bikes, we're really maintaining their enthusiasm for motorcycling. That's why it's important to keep them satisfied. I started out as a service advisor, and I know that the service advisor's job can be the toughest job in the dealership. And if you deal with service customers during any part of your job, you know what I'm talking about. You know that the service customer is the real boss. But you know, customer satisfaction doesn't have to be as difficult as you think if you follow a few common sense guidelines. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. Some basic steps you can follow when you communicate with your customer to ensure he's satisfied. And they include effectively greeting your customer, determining your customer's needs and then accurately recording them on the repair order, selling needed service, obtaining authorizations for revising estimates, delivering a motorcycle after the service is performed, and tips on handling comebacks. Now, let's get busy. How does your customer feel when he first rides into your service department? How quickly is he greeted? If you're busy, do you still acknowledge him? Let's watch and see how my service advisor handles this situation.
Remember I called you about that revised estimate? What we ended up doing was we fixed the drive belt, and then we did a complete tune-up for you. I mean, it's running great. I test rode it myself, and you should have no problems with it. Excuse me. I'll be with you in a moment. I'm just wrapping things up here. Just take this pink copy now to the cashier. She'll take care of that for you. And here's my card. Call me anytime if you have any problems. Okay? Ride carefully. Bye. Good morning. I'm Alex. How can I help you?
Yeah, I got a CBR 600 and I got a problem. The bike is stumbling, crapping out. I mean, it's just not running right.
Okay, well, we'll take a look at the bike. But first, do you have your owner ID card? Great. Joe, let me take a look at your file.
Alex knows the right way to greet a customer. First, he acknowledged that the customer was there.
Excuse me.
He didn't make him wait unnoticed. That makes the customer feel important, and he knows he's not being overlooked. Also, Alex treated the customer the way he'd like to be treated. He's friendly and has a professional attitude that immediately establishes a positive rapport with his customer. And a personal introduction helps everything get started on the right foot, too. Finally, and most importantly, Alex asked,
How can I help you?
Yeah, I got a CBR.
"How can I help you?" Those 5 little words show that you're concerned about your customer and that you're going to help. Even if you're having a bad day, start with a friendly greeting. You're a professional. It will put both you and your customer at ease. Now, here's a tip from one service manager on handling the greeting.
Smile. Ask it with a smile. Even if the world could be falling around, if you come up, "Hi, Mr. Jones, how are you?" He'll appreciate that.
After you've greeted the customer, you can move on to determine the exact problem. And the 2 most important steps in understanding and recording the customer's complaint have to do with listening and questioning. Now let's see how Alex is doing with his customer.
Okay, Joe. Tell me all about your problem.
Listen, dude, like when it's hot out and I'm just riding slow in traffic trying to be cool, the bike just craps out on me. I mean, just as I'm doing a whole shot, it falls flat on its face.
Well, let me get this straight. What do you mean it falls on its face when you do a whole shot?
I mean, if I take off from a dead stop, it misses.
Oh, I see. Okay, let me make sure I understand. The weather is hot and you're driving slow. Now, does the temperature gauge on the bike show that it's hot?
Yeah.
And it never happens if the engine temperature gauge is showing normal?
No.
So, when the weather's hot and you're driving slowly, the bike will miss when you take off from a dead stop. Is that right?
You got it.
As you can see, Alex started with open, probing questions, and he listened for the real meat of the complaint.
Well, let me get this straight. What do you mean it falls on its face when you do a hole shot?
I mean, if I try to take off from a dead stop, it misses.
He then used closed questions to focus on the real problem.
The weather is hot and you're driving slow. Now, does the temperature gauge on the bike show that it's hot?
Yeah.
And it
And
never
finally,
happens if
he
the
asked a
engine
closed,
temperature gauge
confirming question to make sure he and the customer were talking about the same thing.
and you're driving slowly, the bike misses when you take off from a dead stop. Is that right?
You got it.
There are many other questions that may be appropriate here. Honda has a drivability checklist to help you find and resolve problems fast. Be sure to use it when it's appropriate. That brings us to the next point, recording the customer's complaint. This will help you determine what the customer needs. Be sure to write down what the customer is actually saying, not what you think he's saying. We call this the customer's contention. Think of yourself as a conduit. Your job is to discover as much as possible about that problem, then to pass that information from the customer to the technician. Now, here are some techniques you can use to help make your customer feel important during this process. Use the customer's name. Maintain eye contact. Don't let yourself be distracted. Now, here's another tip about recording the customer's contention.
On repairs that are unclear, we'll try to get a diagnostic time to find out, check and advise, as we call them. Find out what the problem is, advise the customer of what he's going to need to have done.
Alex is all done with his customer, right? Not yet. This customer may need additional service that he's not aware of.
I see from your service file that you haven't been in for some time. Have you had any work done elsewhere?
No?
Have you done any work yourself?
Yeah, I changed the plugs and the oil. It must have been last spring.
That's it?
You got it.
Checking the service history file, whether it's on a computer or in a job file folder, increases the customer's trust. It shows that you know his motorcycle. A service history file should be started when a motorcycle is purchased. Then, by color-coding the files, you can tell at a glance which motorcycles need to come in for recommended service intervals. And you can identify those customers who were told they needed additional service and elected not to have the work done at that time. By establishing this service history tickle file, you can easily prospect for additional service department business. And you can make these phone calls when the counter is slow. But this is not the only way to sell needed service. A 360-degree walk-around is the most effective way to detect that a motorcycle needs additional service and to document its current condition.
Now, let's take a walk around the bike.
And once you know how to do a walk-around, it should take you no more than 2 minutes. Start at the odometer. Log the number of miles. Check the cables, levers, and grips. Switch on the ignition and start the motorcycle. Check the headlights, turn signals, brake lights and tail lights. Then shut off the motorcycle. Check the front tire. Then the brakes. Check the forks for oil leaks. Check the engine oil level. Is the oil dirty? Does it smell burnt? Check the chain, sprockets, the rear tire, and rear brakes. A thorough walk-around helps you find all the work that needs to be done the first time. And preventive maintenance can also help prevent major costly repairs in the future. And the walk-around has a positive impact on the profitability of your service department. Here's another tip. When presenting these additional service needs to your customer, start with those that have an impact on safety first and convenience items last. That way you have a better chance of making the sale. Now, here's how they're selling needed service at another dealership.
The 360 walk-around allows us to see things that we may have missed in dealing with the customer and his motorcycle. We're able to notice condition of the vehicle, note any kind of damages that may need to be attended to, and just record them on the work order so you can point them out to the customer.
We've already seen two ways to sell needed service, by using the service history file and the walk-around inspection. Now here's another way. Let's drop back in on Alex as he uses a service menu.
Your headlight is no problem. I mean, we can put that right in. Did you know that we have service specials for scooters? You are due for a tune-up.
You know, I really can't afford to put anything else into my scooter.
But you could save 20% if you do it by Saturday. And you wouldn't have to bring your scooter back.
I don't know.
It'll make the scooter run much better, and you won't have a chance of getting stuck somewhere. It's a lot safer to do something like this.
Okay.
Service menus can take two forms.
Right here.
All right.
They can be a mini menu brochure, or they can be displayed on a board in plain view. Either way, menu pricing is another great way to increase your service business.
Menu pricing is important because the customer understands that he's going to get the same price each time he comes in, and that this, no matter who tells it to him, it will be the same.
Let's talk about surprises, additional repairs. As with selling needed service, there is a correct way to obtain authorization for additional repairs. Here's how Alex handles it.
Yes, Miss Ashley. We replaced your headlight and performed the tune-up. But when I took your scooter for a test ride, I found it wouldn't go over 45. Have you ever noticed that?
Don't tell me there's something else wrong.
I'm afraid there is. Your drive belt is worn.
Well, why didn't you tell me about this before?
Well, there was no way we could tell until we did the tune-up.
So what happens if I don't have it fixed?
You won't be able to go freeway speed.
Oh, great.
When obtaining work authorization over the phone, you have to use all your skills. Carefully explain the problem and why it needs to be repaired. Focus on the safety factor if it's applicable. Stress the convenience of repairing it all at once rather than bringing the motorcycle back. Plus, it may be more cost-effective to have all of the repairs done at once. And once you have the additional authorization, document on the repair order the date and time of the telephone conversation. Now, here's how this service manager does it.
I have a price ready by the time I call them on the phone, so I can call them and say, this is what's wrong, these are the parts, this is the labor, this is the total. Would you like us to do that work?
When your customer comes in to pick up his motorcycle, you have another chance to make a positive impression. We call it an active delivery. An active delivery means the service advisor talks with the customer first. He explains the work that was performed, answers any questions, and thanks him before the customer pays the bill. If your customer plans to pick up his motorcycle when you're not there, it can also take place over the phone. Just watch and see how it's done.
Oh, Mrs. Peterson, I think we've got your Gold Wing all ready for that trip to Daytona. We put on the new tire, and at no charge, we greased the drive splines. That should keep you rolling smooth. I test rode the bike after the technician was finished, and everything checks out. Here's the total for parts, here's labor, and the total amount, just as I quoted you over the phone.
It all looks great. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Peterson. We appreciate your business. Now, here's my card with a reminder about your next recommended service. And in the meantime, if anything should come up, please feel free to call on me.
We'll do that. Thanks, Alex.
Okay, here, take this copy to the cashier and you'll be all finished. Have a great trip.
Bye.
Bye.
Now, that was an active delivery. Alex's customer understands what work was performed. Mr. Peterson is glad he got his tire changed, and having the drive splines greased, that's added value. By giving the customer his card, Alex also had a chance to remind him about the regular maintenance interval. That was smart. Finally, Alex thanked them for their business and asked his customer to personally contact him if he had any questions or encountered any problems. If you've recommended additional service and the customer has turned it down, Honda's quality control form can be used for follow-up at a later date. Now, here's how active delivery works for this professional.
It allows us to greet the customer when he's here to pick up the motorcycle, explain the repairs and charges that had been done, and give him a business card if he has any other questions later on. Encourage him to call, stop in and ask questions.
This brings us to the toughest challenge of them all, handling comebacks. Don't view them as a problem. Rather, they're an opportunity to get the customer back on your side, to make that customer satisfied once again. Now, let's watch as Alex handles a comeback.
Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, how was Daytona?
Daytona was fine, but the ride was terrible.
Simply terrible.
What happened?
Remember about a month ago when we brought the bike in because the air shocks were leaking? We thought you fixed them.
Oh, you mean when you had it in before the new tire?
Right. Well, we're going down I-75 and the air shocks start to lose air. It was the worst trip of our life.
Yeah, and all the other club members laughed at us. It was awful.
My wife was miserable back there. I'm pretty disappointed in your service, Alex.
Very disappointed.
So what are you going to do about our problem, Alex?
I'm really sorry. And I can understand how you were so miserable, Mrs. Peterson. I will get on this right now. Let me get your file. Can you leave your bike?
At this point, you have the opportunity to turn this into a win-win situation, one in which both the customer and the dealership feel good about the resolution of this problem. After all, a comeback is an opportunity to make good on whatever went wrong and respond promptly to your customer's needs. In this example, Alex is beginning to win the customer over by carefully listening to the problem. He's using non-defensive body language to show that he's on the customer's side. He's diffusing the situation rather than letting it totally blow up.
It was the work you're going to do about our problem, Alex.
I'm really sorry.
Saying, "I'm sorry," can do a lot to relieve a tense
I
situation.
will get on this right now.
When a comeback comes into your shop, give it the #1 priority. You must show your customers that you want to help fix this problem in a timely manner. And always, always make sure you do a quality check. Now, what you don't want to do is blame it on someone else. Don't cop out and say, "They all do that." That isn't a solution, and it will only make that customer more angry.
I can understand how you were so miserable.
In handling a comeback, it's important to review the service history of that motorcycle. Compare the work performed to the customer's complaint. There may be an explanation. It may turn out that your customer was informed of the problem, but they never authorized its repair. Or perhaps they thought it was just in for service 2 weeks ago, and it's actually been 3 months and 1,000 miles. Mistakes happen, but active listening, taking the blame, and proposing a timely solution can have a positive impact on customer satisfaction. And remember, satisfied customers tell an average of 3 people about their positive experiences. Dissatisfied customers tell 11 people. In other words, bad news travels fast.
First of all, I try and diffuse the situation. I'm very concerned, naturally. I don't come out laughing as though it's a joke. You can't deal with a customer that way. It just makes them mad. You have to get on, find some common ground with him and let him know that you are concerned about his motorcycle, because you're not going to be in business if you're not concerned with the gentleman.
When it comes to improving customer communications, it all starts with a positive attitude. We've shown you how to use that positive attitude with listening and questioning skills to improve customer communication. You've seen how a good customer greeting sets the tone for the entire transaction by putting the customer at ease. We showed the importance of determining and recording the customer's needs on the repair order. We gave you some great tips on selling needed service, then discussed how to properly obtain authorization for additional work. We emphasized the importance of active delivery and its key role in satisfying the service customer. And finally, we showed how to turn a comeback into an opportunity that benefits both the customer and the dealership. All of these steps directly affect customer satisfaction, and customer satisfaction is the most important goal.